Okay. Bernadette, are we ready? We have about 150 in the waiting room.
Yeah, I think, Gloria, what do you think? Should we open it up?
I think we're fine.
Sounds good.
Okay. Go to admit all now.
Great.
Okay, it looks like most people are here. I want to welcome you all to the first meeting of the UIS UIC Academic Fiscal Officer and Business Manager meeting for the FY22 fiscal year. I'm Gloria Keeley, Assistant Vice President of Business Services in the Office of the CFO, and I'm really glad you could join today. We've got some important information to share today, but first, just a few housekeeping reminders. We are recording the meeting today for future presentation, just so you're aware of that. All attendees of today's meeting are going to be placed on mute. So if you have questions that come up during the presentations, please enter them in the chat box. We are monitoring that very closely and will address them as they are entered or at the end of a given presentation. As I said, we're recording, so a link to today's meeting will also be available for your reference after the event is over. And as always, if you have questions about today's meeting or any other topics, feel free to reach out to me, Dana Libro, or Bernadette Rossmore, and our contact information is on the slide that you're seeing there. I also want to take just a minute to thank Dana and Bernadette, who are really my behind the scenes facilitators today, and they make this all possible. I could not possibly do this. So if I look good, it's because they're doing all the hard work, and I want to acknowledge them for that. Let's see. So let's move on to the agenda. I'm not going to read through it because it's got lots of content, so I'm going to move us right into the announcements. Well, first off, I just wanted to share a reminder that we have a new Chief Financial Officer. Paul Ellinger accepted the position of interim CFO, and he assumed that position in July as Dr. Ghosh transitioned to his role as interim Vice President for Academic Affairs. Paul has been with the university for many years and has been great to work with since he took on this new role. He wasn't able to be with us today, but I'm hopeful that he'll be able to join us in the future for an introduction so that you can get to know Paul a little better. Also, I wanted to share with you that I've decided to retire on November 30th. We still don't know what that means, but we are working to determine the next steps for my role. I do want to take a minute to assure everyone that Paul really understands the need for the kind of liaison role that my office performs, and we're going to make sure that you have continuity of support as I make my transition. Okay, next up, I wanted to share that the OBFS website redesign project has completed its phase 1 analysis, and it's been approved through the ITPC process to move to the phase 2 design and implementation portion of the project. Much more to come about the review of the wireframes and the 8 categories of recommendations, but I did want to just share today that those categories are around improving navigation, improving the structure of the site, improving the functionality, taking a look at the content and making sure that you have what you need in that area. Certainly accessibility is a big focus for us, as well as visual appeal. And then we also want to take into consideration the change management. How is it going to impact you as we make this big transition? There's been a lot of material there, and many of you have used the site for years. Be assured that we are understanding of that, and we'll do what we can to make the transition as seamless as possible. We also are addressing issues of ongoing maintenance so that once the site is redesigned, it's going to stay fresh and new for you in an ongoing way. All right, that's it for my announcements. Next up, we've welcome please Magdalena Yach, who will give an update on the biennial certification.
Thank you, Gloria. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Magdalena Yach. I am the surplus coordinator in property accounting, and I just have a few announcements from our office. The first announcement is that all cycles for the biennial inventory of equipment have a certification due date of September 30th, 2021. So in 8 days, all units at all universities should have their biennial inventory certified. The second is that all cycles have the due date to resolve all pending unfound items by December 31st of 2021. What that means is that during their physical inventory search, if a unit was unable to locate equipment, they were able to mark that equipment as pending unfound. Unit is able to certify with those pending unfound items, but they do need to be resolved by December 31st. All those pending unfound items have to be resolved. We also are required to report to the state of Illinois all the unresolved unfound items, and our office will be reporting those pending unfound items to the state in January of 2022. And as some of you probably already noticed, our system offices representatives have started to reach out and have been reaching out to units that remained uncertified and uncompliant, because as I stated, our certification due date for the biennial inventory is September 30th, 2021. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our property accounting office and myself. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Magdalena. I did just want to add a footnote on this. I am part of a regular meeting with the external auditors. Our external auditors are brand new this year, and they are coming to us at a very difficult time. But in the audit meeting, just yesterday, the physical inventory issue was mentioned. And so the auditors are eager to do some testing, whether or not we get to where we need to be on September 30th. That said, if you're not where you need to be, expect a knock on the door to get some additional testing as the audit proceeds. So again, my office is available. If we can help in any way, also, please let us know that. All right, next up, Dana Libro and Brian Zumpf will join to provide information on the significant level of policy activity that's happened since we last met.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Burnett, thank you for moving to the next slide. So today we wanted to talk about the recent policy updates since we last met, some upcoming policy changes, and then also the 2021 policy manual evaluation, which is underway. And we'll finish with questions and resources. Next slide, please. Okay, so recent policy changes, sections 1 and 19. The rewritten section 1 and new section 19 are the result of about a year and a half worth of work with subject matter experts. And the goal of the project was twofold. One, to update the policies and set the groundwork for fiscal operations in the U of I system. And then secondly, to separate out policies concerning contracts into their own section. So the rewritten section 1 provides an overview of the system's financial functions, including financial health and reporting. And the new section 19 is designed to consolidate issues concerning contracts into one section. There have been a lot of changes to contract policies, including increased approval thresholds and more detail concerning delegation approval and restrictions. So please take a look at the new policy and get in touch if you have any questions. Next slide, please. Also, sections 1.1, so forth. So this relates to contracts under the $10,000 template, which was discontinued in favor of the use of iBuy. And the suite of policies has been updated to reflect the current and future practice of using iBuy for all contracts and services under $10,000 instead of using a template form. Next, the relocation policies. These policies have been revised to reflect a new procedure for contracting with a system-approved moving vendor. And units will now engage with federal movers directly via an email template, and purchasing will be copied on the email. Please see the policy itself for specific information about how to contract with federal movers. And then section 10.5 petty cash and its child policies addressing petty cash have been decommissioned as no remaining units use petty cash. Next slide. Section 8.1.1, business meals, refreshments, and alcohol. So expenses associated with meals for virtual meetings must now have written approval from the dean, vice chancellor, associate chancellor, assistant vice president, provost, or their delegate. That's a new policy update. And then section 13.5, non-monetary exchanges. This policy was just updated to include examples of transactions that are not non-monetary exchanges. So please check out that policy. Brian now will update on upcoming policy changes.
Thank you, Dana. So we are going to be having some new software systems that are going to be introduced, as you know, including Chrome River, Source to Pay, and Contracts Plus. And we will have special teams reviewing applicable policies for needed changes. I'm sorry, Bernadette, can you come to the next slide, please? Thank you. And we will update you as those changes are identified, reviewed, and finalized. And for policy 19.4.1, electronic signatures, we are currently reviewing this policy to determine and detail in policy what verification is going to be required for electronic signatures, including programs such as Adobe Sign, and what parties will be responsible for collecting the verification if the document was either internal only or if it dealt with external parties. Next slide, please. And the CFO mandated 2021 policy manual evaluation is underway with a completion date of September 30, 2021. Designated subject matter expert reviewers have already been notified of their responsibilities via email. And if you received an email and been designated as a reviewer, please let us know if you wish to delegate your review so we can get those individuals added to the review team and get them access to the review spreadsheet. This annual review has several important purposes, but one of the very important ones is establishing policy priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. So it really helps us to guide our work in order to aid you in a timely fashion. At this point in time, we're happy to take any brief questions. I apologize if I'm too far away from my microphone. I will make sure that I address that for the next time. Any brief questions at this point in time? Otherwise, we have our contact information right here. Okay, thank you, everyone.
One question in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bernadette.
Yes, Brian, there is one question. Has there been a policy change on ordering microwave ovens for employees' lunch in a common area?
Not to my knowledge offhand. I would be happy to look into that specific area. Obviously, that's a very particular piece of equipment, and I will be happy to look into that and get back to that individual.
Thank you, Brian. I can let you know who was inquiring about that.
Great. Thank you, Bernadette.
Sure.
Okay. Next up then is Julie Wagner from AITS. She's a RIMS coordinator in the Records and Information Management Services area. She's with us to provide information on the use of Adobe Sign at the university. Oh, I lied. I'm sorry. Big mistake on my part. I completely missed that Dana is going to give us an update on the financial process performance measures dashboard. So Dana, go ahead.
Thanks, Gloria. I thought you were going to skip right over me. Okay, so I wanted to talk today about a project that is underway. As Gloria mentioned, it's the Financial Process Performance Measures Dashboard, which is quite a mouthful. So we're calling it the FPPM Dashboard. This project is sponsored by Kelly Block of AITS, Gloria, Brent Rasmus, Controller, and Julissa Midas from University Audit. Next slide, please. Okay, so the project's goal is to create a dashboard to be used by leadership at all levels to monitor the financial process performance health for a unit, college, or university in an informative and customizable format. It's meant to be used in partnership with MyUI Financials, but it's going to have a different focus. Whereas MyFi offers data on budget and expense information, this dashboard is truly going to focus on compliance or financial processes. The dashboard will display metrics that are actionable or informative, meaning that they're concerning points that can be mitigated through additional education or resources. And the hope is that the overall, they will result in an overall reduced risk to the university system, more efficient use of resources, and ultimately fewer state compliance audit findings. Some of this information is available in different systems, but it's not easily accessible or you're not able to review it consistently. It also might not be available on a college or chart level. So this dashboard is going to bring all of the information together in one platform. Next slide, please. The analysis team is working with AITS to create a format that uses various types of charts and colors, such as this inspirational image, to convey the information in an engaging manner. And it will have an informative cover page, and additional detail will be available by drilling down on each metric. Next slide, please. A proof of concept was created by AITS, which included 5 preliminary data points. And they were inventory aging of fixed assets, misclassified CFOP transactions, unallowable fund type and Nakubo combinations, unreconciled P-card and T-card transactions, and then iBuy purchases where the requester and approver were one and the same. The image on the right of the slide is the main dashboard of the proof of concept that displays these 5 metrics I just mentioned. And these numbers are based on dummy information, so you can disregard them. And the information can be further focused by university, college, and even by department. And a user can then click on a metric to see the additional detail, which can then be exported to Excel. Next slide, please. So the analysis team is currently conducting interviews with potential users across the system and the 3 universities to collect feedback and initial thoughts of the proof of concept. And our goal is to improve the content visually and functionally, as well as identify additional comment that may be useful to all users. We're also collecting information about who might use the dashboard and which metrics might currently be monitored by a unit. Once the interviews are complete, the analysis team is going to compile and analyze the information and then work with AITS to create the next iteration based on common feedback. And the new version then will be tested and discussed in a similar manner until it's rolled out. If you would like to be interviewed, or you can suggest someone else that should be interviewed, please contact me directly. My contact information is there. We are happy to talk to anyone and share the dashboard in use so you can get a better feel for what it is doing now and what it might be able to do once we consider some improvements. So we've received great feedback on the project to date, and we feel that it's going to be a useful tool for many of you. We look forward to sharing more as the project continues and the dashboard is developed. If you have any questions, I can take a look at the chat. I see one question: will it be available within the MyUI or separate? That's a good question. We haven't decided on that yet. We'll work with AITS to understand the best platform to offer it, but we're really just trying to collect all information at this point and leave everything on the table. So more to come on that.
Thanks, Dana. Excuse me. This is a project that's been near and dear to my heart for years, so I'm delighted to see that it's moving forward. And now, without further ado, Julie Wagner to talk to us about Adobe Sign.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Wagner. I work with Records and Information Management Services, which is under the umbrella of AITS. Go ahead and hit next slide. So today I'm here to talk to you about Adobe Sign. You've probably already heard about Adobe Sign. So at this point, you might be aware that it is an e-signature platform that you can use to build and send documents, but it's also a lot more, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to introduce you to a few of the more advanced features that you might not have heard of yet, and go beyond that more simple functionality of sign and fill. We won't be doing any live demo today, so if you are interested in that, you can contact me directly after the presentation and we can arrange something for your department or group. Basically today, I just want to give you some tools for a good elevator pitch to your group for adopting Adobe Sign. And go ahead and hit next. Just some details for you guys about the cost of Adobe Sign. When we first rolled it out last March in 2020, we had originally introduced it along with a cost model that was based on usage levels. But since then, that cost model has been nixed and it is free to use for all university departments no matter what volume you anticipate using it. That said, we'd love to know if you plan on being a heavy user, just so that we're aware that we can provide you with the appropriate level of support. On the university's informational page about Adobe Sign, you can see metrics and usage data for who uses the platform at what volume, as well as how long agreements usually take to complete if you need some data. We anticipate that the free model is going to continue indefinitely. If it ever does change and we lose the funding that we have, we would then notify all users and give you plenty of time to explore alternatives. All right, next slide. Right now, in order to get started with Adobe Sign, the unit security contact must initiate the process by filling out an access request form for each department that wants to get set up. During this process, the USC will need to choose a group admin for each department, and from there, the admin can start adding people to the group and adjusting permissions. Students can also be added to the departmental groups as well as needed. I see there's a question, is it free for students? It is free for students, but students have to be manually added into your group in order to use the tool. They do not have the same automatic signing access that an employee would. As of right now, an individual user can only be in one group, so that's why it's important to nominate a group admin for each department. And the USC might be over several different groups, so that's why you need a group admin within each one. When you need help with this or something isn't going as expected, you can reach out to the AITS service desk. In most common cases, they can get you sorted out pretty quickly. And if needed, they can escalate the ticket over to RIMS because we're still doing some of that higher level admin stuff. And then also, if you go to lab.uillinois.edu/esignature and then find the knowledge base, you can then look up your group admin and see if your group already has a group existing, and if so, who you can contact directly. All right. So what exactly is an e-signature? In 2000, the United States passed the e-Sign Act, making e-signatures legal for virtually any use. Similar acts have now passed around the world, which make e-signatures a legal, reliable way to get important documents signed. An e-signature is a fast and simple way to affix your signature to a document without ever touching pen to paper with a full audit trail. This is highly cost effective because it saves a lot of work of physical writing of documents, running around for signatures, printing costs, etc. For example, one of our earliest pilot users was System HR, and they have really embraced the paperless approach. Now, when onboarding, candidates and employees can electronically fill and sign offer letters and onboarding forms quickly and securely. So you can route contracts through multiple parties and close them in a matter of hours instead of switching them back and forth constantly. All right, so just for a snapshot of what usage levels look like in Chicago and Springfield, since April 2020, there's been over 17,000 agreements, and of those, 72% have been completed. So you have to think that at least some of those expired or canceled ones are also like test runs as well, or incorrectly sent ones. So as you can see, a really high volume of these are getting completed and sent through 554 unique senders within the department, within the campuses, sorry. And then onto our next is, this just shows you the amount of agreements by month. As you can see, I mean, we have our one anomalous spike there in May 2021 because there was a large bulk send for something. But over time, you can see the adoption rate has really gone up and up and up. So we're just going to talk quickly about some of the more advanced features of Adobe Sign just to get your feet wet and introduce you to what they are. So the basics, if you want to hit the next slide. Basics is probably what you've already seen of Adobe Sign. The build your documents with drag and drop fields that are customizable. You can route envelopes to multiple parties. You can attach custom messages, track your envelopes once they're sent for progress, and your full audit trail is there as well. Once you've mastered the basics, you can always set up templates. So you can build your own library within your group or your personal usage. And then we're also working on having a more broad library for everyone to access for really common forms that OBFS pushes out to everyone, or other kind of contracts and things that would be really common usage that you can then pull from the general library of templates and use however you need to use it. So workflows. Workflows is a special feature of Adobe Sign that you can easily start to hone in on how Adobe Sign can be tailored to fit your specific business needs within your group. Administrators can create workflows for their groups that specify the documents to be included in an agreement, the characteristics of the participants, including predefined names, roles, and routing, form fields to be pre-filled by the sender, emails that need to be sent to participants. You can specify agreement expiration, password options, and more. Senders using a workflow template are guided through the send process with custom instructions and fields, making the send process easier to use and less prone to errors. So you can set it up so that every employee within your group who uses this particular workflow template is following the same exact steps every time, so you get consistent results. Web forms. Okay. Web forms are the term that Adobe Sign uses for forms that are essentially self-service forms that your end user could access at any time, fill out, and then submit to you, and then you can take action on that form. So each signer completes that form on demand, and then the transaction then notifies you and shows up in your Manage tab on Adobe Sign. You can set it up so the web form always has the same permanent countersigners, or you can set it up to where you specify a different countersigner every time the document is submitted to you. So in the case of some kind of routine approval of a service request, you might want to have a permanent countersigner there, but in the case of a advising request or something that's a little more nuanced, you might want that flexibility. These are really useful for things like access requests and maintenance requests, as always, and you can conveniently link them on your website and people can access them freely there. Okay, so a lot of questions that are frequently asked are going to be on our knowledge base, and it's answers.uillinois.edu. Sorry, it's on the next slide. So there's lots of answers there. I'm going to go through the questions that I see in the chat real quick. How are we defining a high volume user department? Probably, I would say more than 100 agreements per month or so. Again, you're not going to be charged by usage, and we don't necessarily have to be informed that you're going to be using it to that high volume. It's just helpful for us to know if you're planning on using it for more than just the occasional contract, and if you're going to be switching over to more high volume, 100 agreements a month or something like that, or more, thousands maybe. That way we can have a contact established with you guys and have a direct line to support, because the more things you send, the more problems you might encounter, just as like a rule. Next question, are there any official documents that cannot have an e-signature and still require a wet signature? So by law, an e-signature is the same as a wet signature. It has the same audit trail that you have. For even a higher level of security, there is the option to get what's called a digital signature that has additional levels of encryption and security. There is a help article on knowledge base in the How Do I Sign an Electronic Document that will take you to an explanation between the basic e-signature, which is good for just about anything, and a digital signature, which is if you really need like a high level of confidence that the person signing it is the person who says they say they are, and not just everyone is already authenticated through like their Duo authentication or through an email link. So does a signer need to have Adobe Sign to sign? No, not necessarily. If they are a university employee, they might have an issue with signing the first time they ever sign, because if they have previously created a free Adobe Sign account, there might be a conflict within the system. However, they just need to contact the AHS service desk and we can quickly resolve that. And if you are ever sending to an external email address, you would simply change the verification level that you need from Adobe Sign account to then email verification. So that instead of signing into Adobe Sign, they just have to go to their email and click that personalized link, and that's their authentication. Did I miss anybody, or are there any other questions?
There's nothing else in the chat.
Okay, I have another slide. So this is just a quick get started, and then my next slide has all of the contact information. So if you want to hit next. Okay, so again, our knowledge base has tons of information for you about how to get started, how to use Adobe Sign, tutorials for how to build templates, etc. And if you've never used it before, it's kind of like a wiki that we've built with different help articles for you. And you can find it at answers.uillinois.edu. If you follow this link specifically, it will take you straight to the Adobe Sign articles. They're all linked together for ease of use, or you can always just use that search bar up in the top right corner and put in Adobe Sign and they'll all come up for you. If you have any issues while you're using Adobe Sign, you can contact service desk at servicedesk@ahs.uillinois.edu. They can answer most of your questions really quickly. And if they can't, they can easily escalate them to a person who can. If you are interested in scheduling a one-on-one or a informational session or demo about Adobe Sign for your group, you can contact me directly, juliew@illinois.edu. That's all I have for today, just short and sweet for you guys.
Julie, thank you very much. This is a great opportunity to learn more about Adobe Sign, and it's a tool that anyone can take advantage of. I also wanted to mention that in OBFS, we are looking at our forms inventory to see how we might take advantage of Adobe Sign in the future, and are looking at the business process issues related to that, as well as the level of assurance that we need on a given form. More to come on that later. And also, I think Brian mentioned earlier on around policy, this is an emerging area, and we are looking at some minor changes to policy around electronic signatures that should be upcoming in the next couple of months. All right, moving on. You know, I've learned it's really not only critical to know how to do a process, but it's also pretty vital to understand why we do something. So I'm glad to have Ann Larimore, Assistant Director at UAFR, and Amanda Schleiper, Assistant Director of Support Services at UPay, to join us today to tell us the how and why of P-card service dates.
Thank you so much. And I'm actually going to share my screen. So let me know once you can see it.
And we can see it and it looks good.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. Amanda and I are here today to discuss the P-card service dates for accruals and deferral tracking. I'm Ann Larimore, and I'm presenting today with Amanda Schleiper from University Payables. So today I'm going to discuss the importance of the P-card service dates for accrual and deferral tracking. You should have hopefully received a weekly tip in early September, I think the first week of September, on this topic, but we'll go into more detail on this topic today. I will just do a little plug and say, if you are not yet signed up for our UAFR weekly tips, I highly encourage you to sign up. There's a lot of good information that are provided each week through those tips. So feel free to reach out to me if you want some more information on how to sign up for those. And then I'm going to pass it over to Amanda, who is going to provide guidance on how to properly enter those service dates in the P-card log. So the university reports its financial statements on an accrual basis, and therefore we need to track accruals like accounts payable and deferrals like prepaids for proper financial reporting. And in FY20, there was an upgrade to the P-card's web solution system to capture these service date ranges for certain types of P-card purchases. And capturing this additional data helps us ensure that we are properly recognizing the expenses in the correct fiscal year for our financial reporting. So later this year, I think that University Payables is going to implement Chrome River, and Amanda might speak to this more later, and I believe there's another presentation today on this topic. But I did want to note that the concepts that we're going to talk about today with the service date range will remain the same, regardless of whether it's in the P-card web solution system or in Chrome River. We're still going to require those service date ranges, and what we're talking about today will still remain the same. So based on the account code selection, the P-card system is now able to determine what needs to be accrued and deferred. So for example, if you select a supply account code like this 121100 consumable office supplies, the P-card system will not require a service date range, as this is a supply and not a service. However, if you selected a service account code like 141700, association dues for memberships and professional organizations payment to vendor, then the P-card system would require a date range, as this is a membership service. So we at UAFR are then able to use that P-card data, the service date range, and the transaction date to determine what needs to be accrued as an accounts payable and what expenses need to be deferred as a prepaid expense. This is why it's so important to enter accurate dates into those service date fields. And kind of why we're presenting today is during the year-end fact sheet process this last year-end for FY21 close, we noted that the date ranges reported on the fact sheet often differed from what was in the P-card system when we were comparing the information. And since we accrue and defer the portion of the expense based on those date ranges, we often had to reach out to you in the units and say which date range is correct, the P-card system or what you have listed on the fact sheet. And we found that units often said the fact sheet date ranges are correct and what was in the P-card system was incorrect. And so we wanted to emphasize the importance of these P-card service date ranges because not only are they used for fact sheets, but we also use them for other accrual and deferral reviews outside of the fact sheet process for other fund types like ICR, state, gift. Therefore, it's very important that you enter the correct date ranges, the start date and end date for these types of services. So I wanted to go through some accrual and deferral examples.
Excuse me, Ann, there was a quick question.
Okay.
If the date range goes beyond 6/30, will we still be able to use current year's state fund?
So I think we got this question at UIUC, and John Lura was able to give a good answer for it. So you're saying that the date range may have started, let's say it's a membership fee that you paid for in FY21 using this FY21 state, and it crosses fiscal years and goes and finishes in FY22. I think that I might defer to John to provide, and Bridget Toe to provide better reasoning.
Yeah, I'm here, Ann, if you want me to speak to that. I apologize for interrupting.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, sure.
But yeah, that's a common question we get, and it is a good question. I mean, we've talked to the comptroller's office on that before, and what they have advised us is if it's like you're renewing annual membership fees, they allow us to, and let's say it's $150 for a year's membership fee. If the membership fee starts in FY22, let's say it starts in, November of this year, and then ends in November of FY23, they actually allow you to use the 1022 fund to pay for that entire year membership. So that is one good thing. It does simplify things a bit. Another thing that some units do is they'll actually charge it to a local fund, the entire thing, like an unrestricted gift fund, for example. And then what they'll do is they'll transfer the FY21 portion to 1022 state fund. And then once July comes, they'll transfer the FY23 portion to the 1023 fund. And that's really an extra level of detail for proper matching to the year. But while that is nice and it's a good thing to maybe do, it's not necessarily required. So sorry if that's a long-winded response, but yes, you can charge it to the year that the membership starts in.
Thank you, John. So if there's no further questions, I'll go through. We have a prepaid expense example, an accounts payable example, just to give you some background on these. So prepaid expense, as you all probably know, are whenever the university pays for a good or service in the closing fiscal year, but they don't receive the entire good or service, or they receive a portion of it in the next fiscal year. Therefore, we have to defer a portion of the expense to the next fiscal year. So our example is actually looking from this last fiscal year end close. And like we were just talking about, membership fees are often something we commonly see. And so we're going to go through a membership fee example. So in March of 2021, a unit enrolled and paid for a professor to have a one-year membership with a professional organization. And whenever they paid for that membership, they used that 141,700 account code, which caused the P card system to require the service date range be entered. And the service dates for this membership were from March 1st, 2021 through March 1st, 2022. So they correctly entered those date ranges as the service begin date and the service end date, which would cause for our accrual and deferral tracking us to defer the FY22 portion to FY22. So the the July 1st, 2021 date through the March 1st, 2022 date. So just to see what this looks like, it was paid for in FY21 on March 1st, and then those start dates and end dates are the March 1st, 21 through March 1st, 22 using that 141,700 expense account code. Then an accounts payable transaction. So accounts payable, as you probably know, just to give you some background, it's whenever the university receives a good or service in the closing fiscal year, but doesn't pay for it until the following fiscal year. Therefore, we have to accrue all or a portion of that expense at year end. So in this example, the university received advertising in March of 2021, which is in FY21, but they didn't pay for it until July of 2021, which is in FY22. So the unit entered the proper expense account code, that 141,400, advertising services, payment to vendor, which caused them to have to enter service date ranges. And they entered the service dates of when they received the advertisements in March. So by comparing, just to show you what this looks like, by comparing, you can see that they received the advertisements in FY21 in March, but they actually paid for it in FY22 in July. So this was a payable at year end. And one thing that we did see a lot of, and it might just have been some confusion, was we saw the expense start date and expense end date often were the transaction date. And that causes a problem in that they are paying and saying they're receiving all of the good or service in the same fiscal year. So we won't catch it for accrual and deferral tracking. So just make sure you're using the correct expense start date and end date. It's very important. And then just, I wanted to talk about a quick unique circumstance that we often see. So if the purchase date has no end date, then you would enter the purchase date as both the beginning date and the ending date to ensure the expense is fully recognized in the year of purchase. So the common example for this is software subscriptions where there is no end date or expiration date. Then you would simply enter the purchase date as both the start date and end date. These are usually rare, but we did want to touch on them. And
we do have a question. We do have a question.
Yes.
Currently our unit's P card reconciler enters the service dates. Can the card holder enter the service dates rather than the reconciler?
I'm going to defer to Amanda on that one.
Not a problem. Thank you. I was going to jump in. Yes, they can. When they're completing their order log, the card holder can complete that as opposed to the reconciler. The reconciler and card holder can perform the same function when creating an order log.
Thank you.
All right,
And
it's now
I'll let
my turn here too. So thank you, Anne. So we're now speaking of order logs, speaking of order logs, we have one up on the screen and you can see my fancy circles there. I'm not very good with my pen, but there's 5 areas, I'm sorry, in which you need to fill out in your order log: the vendor, the unit price, the item description, and the expense start and end date. And can we go to the next slide, please? So here we have one that is completed. A place that I've gone before is the NAPCP. So this is a membership. So I filled in my vendor. It was for a 1-year membership at $500. My description was NAPCP membership. And the expense date, the start date is 10/1/21 and ends 9/30/22. But as you can see, I'm going to make Anne earn her keep here. Up here at the beginning, I made the transaction on 9/2. So just because I paid for it on 9/2 doesn't mean that's when the membership begins. The membership actually begins on 10/1. So I want to put in those appropriate start and end dates. Then I would suggest adding a comment as well, and I did here and said, this is for an annual membership for NAPCP for the card program, ordered on 9/1, but membership did not start until 10/1/21 and will end on 9/30/22. And because I used that 141,700, I got my expense start and end dates. As Anne referred earlier, we do have a new program coming up called Chrome River. Not sure if it's Melissa or whom is giving that presentation here a little later on, but the same concept applies in both the P card software as well as Chrome River. So it's actually almost easier in Chrome River. So that's definitely something to stick around for. And I think I'm ready for my next slide. All right, and we are done. We want to thank you so much. This has Anne and my information on it, our phone numbers, emails, and then probably the best way to get your card questions answered would be to email the cco@uillinois.edu. That goes to our main inbox, and we have lots of people in there watching that every day. So thank you so much.
Thank you both. I think that was tremendous information and very clearly presented. At this point, I'm going to give us a 5-minute break because I don't know about you, but I'm wearing a step tracker that bothers me every time I don't walk 250 steps in an hour. So we will reconvene at 2:55 for our next presentation, but take a few minutes to get up and stretch. All right, let's reconvene. I'm pretty excited today to have the next presenters come up because there's been a lot of activity and tremendous progress on the Source to Pay program over the summer. Today, Brenda Hickson, Director of the Office of Organizational Effectiveness, will join us for some important information on that progress and how you can be engaged, as well as some important updates on deployment dates. And Jim Martini, the Senior Director of University Payables, is with us with the UPay demo team, and we'll get to see a demo of the new Chrome River product, which is going to replace TEM.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Gloria. Unfortunately, Brenda had a last minute cancellation, so Kerry Kennedy will step in to present on Contracts Plus portion of the Source to Pay presentation. Kerry, if you'd like, I can present the screen.
That would be great. Thank you, Philippe.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kerry Kennedy, and I am the project manager for the Contracts Plus project. And this slide here, we always like to start out in our presentation to give you an overview of the Source to Pay program. In the graphic, it lists all the projects that are a part of the Source to Pay program, and you can see the status on the slide. So in the iBuy optimization project, that was broken out into 3 stages, and stage 1 started last year, and we did an e-procurement optimization project that you guys are probably familiar with. We have completed it, and Contracts Plus is a part of stage 1, and we just completed the pilot in August. And we are moving towards deployment of Contracts Plus in November. And as we are doing that, we have already started stage 2 of the iBuy optimization project, which is e-invoicing. So we are in the early stages of that project and working towards configuring that new module. And the 3rd stage of iBuy optimization will be the iBuy banner integration called Ethos. And then we are also busy working in the travel reimbursement project to implement Chrome River. And since we are now going to deploy university-wide with Contracts Plus, that is becoming the contract management project. And the 2 projects at the bottom, the card program and the procurement portal, will start down the roads. So we haven't implemented any new solutions or started those projects yet. So if you can go to the next slide, Philippe. A good update to provide about the pilot is that it was successful. We did have a handful of units from each campus and our system offices participate during a 2-week period in August. No major issues were uncovered in that pilot. There are no roadblocks that are stopping us from deploying, so that is very good news. The team is engaged to still work through things that we are learning about the system as our contract volume is increasing through August, September, and up until November. What we are busy doing right now is to get the new users from the departments and within our contracting offices set up in the production environment through the SecApp. So you guys have all seen the communication that have been going out in September related to that. And we are also working with the change management team to prepare training for deployment. So you will start to see communication regarding training. It is scheduled for a 2-week period in August. There are a lot of different sessions, and those sessions will be happening at varied times. So please watch for that communication with more information about how to register for that training. The good news about the training is if you are not able to attend one of those sessions that you're wanting to learn more about, they will all be available on video as well. And then all of this activity is leading up to this university wide deployment of our ICS users on November 1st. And in order to capture more users, we're going to have a second and a third deployment in January and February. So Philippe. We are doing a presentation about travel later today with Jim Martini, so I'm not going to go into much detail here, but the important information for this group to know is that that project team is working to doing a pilot in their testing system that will start on October 4th and run through October 15th. They're going to move towards doing community-wide training on October 25th. And then they will do a deployment in November for the expense and T-card solutions. And then they will deploy P-card in December. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Jim Martini and team to talk more about Chrome River.
Thanks, Carrie. I wanted to make sure we thanked everybody that's participated in all of the user groups over the years. We've had a TEM improvement group. We had a customer advisory group. We're really trying hard to make this introduction of Chrome River a little friendlier landing than the one we'd had for TEM 10 years ago. So what we've got today is a preview. Okay, this won't be training. We won't be able to address all of your questions. But as I said, we're trying to introduce more and more users to the product as we move along. So what we've got here is a very short demo led by Melissa Plotner. We've got of payables, and we've got some other folks on the line that are going to help monitor chat and change the slides. So once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your contributions to this. And again, this is just a preview. We're not finished with it yet. So Melissa, take it away.
Thank you, Jim. So thank you for having us today. We're going to jump right in and get started. I would ask that if you have questions, put them in the chat. We will probably not address them during the demonstration because we're going to be live in Chrome River, but we will answer them through the chat if possible. And then if time allows, we can answer some after the demo is completed. So the agenda for today is as follows. We're going to go through a high-level timeline. Then we're going to do a demonstration of the system. And we've picked out a few key features for you. And then we'll take your questions at the end. So conducting the demonstration for you today is Susie Baker, Tammy Ziegler, who's sharing her screen, Rachel Santarelli, who's monitoring the chat box, and me, Melissa Plotner. We also have various other team members on this call from UPay and Organizational Effectiveness. So we're all here and available to help answer questions that you might have. So here's a quick overview of the timeline again. Training for the testing group actually started and kicked off this week. We had our first training session yesterday, and the second training is scheduled for tomorrow. Then the planning, the test session will go live on October 4th for those test users. And then we'll review feedback and make updates to our system and the training materials. And then we'll start conducting our go live training on October 25th. And we'll continue until November 15th. And we may still offer some training sessions after November 15th, but they'll be less frequent. Then Chrome River for T-Card and employee reimbursements will go live for everyone on November 15th. And then finally, P-Card will go live on December 6th. So that's it for the timeline. Now we're going to demonstrate the new Chrome River system for you. So just a few minutes while we switch screens to the Chrome River application. While we're getting that together, I wanted to let you know that we are using a test environment. So none of this data is in production. Also, we're still making updates to the system for go live. So what you see here might not exactly match what goes live later this year, but it should be pretty close. And hopefully it'll load for Tammy here in a second. There we go. Sorry, here we go. System being finicky today. All right, so here is the Chrome River landing page. Please know that we're logged in as an administrator role, so you might not see all of these options when you get access. But on the dashboard, items are organized in various ways. On the left, you can see items that are outstanding, items that need to take action, and items that you have submitted. Here you'll see that I have a count of items I have submitted in the past 90 days. And currently that default is set to show just the last 90 days. So let's take some action on our credit card items. So here you'll see my e-wallet and my credit card items are listed. By clicking on the credit card items, you'll see all of my outstanding T-card and P-card transactions. If at any time you need to navigate back to the home screen or the landing page, simply click on the Chrome River logo. By clicking on the receipts link, I can view a gallery of all of my receipts that are in the system. I can click on a receipt to enlarge it. And I can click the close button in the upper right of the receipt to close it back out. So later in this demonstration, we'll show you various ways to submit your receipts. So back on the landing page, on the right, you'll see a link to the service desk form. Customers can submit a ticket if they need help at any time. Also, on this page is the information on how to download the Chrome River mobile app, and it's located here underneath our contact information. Additionally, a link to Chrome River's training camp is available at the bottom of this screen. Please remember that these resources come directly from the vendor. So the benefit is that their training will be maintained and updated whenever the system changes, but a challenge is that it's not specific to the University of Illinois. So some of the training might include features or steps that are not applicable. So just be mindful of that when you're accessing Chrome River's training, but the documentation and other training is helpful on how to use the system. So now let's jump in and we're going to show you how to complete a pre-approval report for a future trip. A pre-approval report is a way for you to track spending before it happens and proactively rather than reactively enforce policies. So you can create requests for categories such as hotels, meals, rental cars, and automatically route for approval based on our policies. So there are a few benefits of using pre-approval. One is that you can use it to help build an expense report after you have returned from your trip. Another benefit is that it provides an electronic tracking system for your unit. So to create a pre-approval, click on the Create New button in the pre-approval ribbon. You'll enter the report name and the start and end date of your trip. And the number of days will automatically calculate, and then carefully type in your business purpose. The transaction will default to general. The other option is for athletics, including recruitment, team travel, and student athlete expenses, as those will need to get additional approval by NCAA compliance. So for trip type, select the final destination for your trip. So if you are staying within Illinois, you would then select in-state. If you're traveling anywhere outside of Illinois, but still within the country, including Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and Alaska, select out of state. And if you're traveling anywhere outside of the country, you would select foreign. The budget fiscal year will always default to the current fiscal year. So we're going to leave that as is. Then select your allocation, which is your focal you'll charge your expenses to. This application will remember accounts that you have recently used. So we're just going to select one that we've previously used for testing. Then click on the Save button in the upper right corner. Then you would select from the types of expenses and add them to this report. For this example, we will add air travel, and then we will click on airfare. Since this is a pre-approval report, you don't have any transactions yet, so we'll just add an estimated amount. So if you have a good estimate on the airfare amount, you will enter that here and then click Save. Let's also add a hotel to this report. Click Hotel, and then click the Calculate button to add your dates of stay, the location, and the number of rooms needed. And Chrome River will automatically populate the maximum amount that can be approved according to policy set by the Illinois Higher Education Travel Control Board. But remember, there are some exceptions to this amount. So click Save. Then we're going to enter the estimated amount of our stay and click Save. Then on the left-hand side, you'll see all the items that we have entered. You will also see an estimated amount that we will spend on our expenses. And then we can click the Submit button. And this pre-approval report will be routed through your unit for approval prior to your trip. Once you leave for your trip and return, you can then import that pre-approval report into your expense report. Because you've completed the pre-approval report, it will start populating your expense report and have more functionality versus the current TEM system. So now that we've shown you a pre-approval report, let's show you how to create an expense report and get reimbursed for mileage. So to submit an expense report for mileage, click on New in the Expenses ribbon, or Create New, sorry. Here you'll see the option to import pre-approval. That's what we would click if we had a pre-approval report to associate with this expense. We don't have one, so we'll just continue. We're going to complete the report name, the business purpose, and select the report type for T-card and employee reimbursements. The system will remember report names and business purposes you have used previously. And the business purpose will also carry forward to other screens within your expense report. Remember, we leave the transaction as general unless this is for athletics. We complete the trip type, and the budget fiscal year will default. Then we click Save. You will then see your e-wallet and e-receipt gallery. Since this is for a mileage expense, we don't have a receipt or credit card item to attach to it. I will click Create New. Here you'll see all of these items organized by expense types. So for mileage, click on ground transportation and then on mileage. On the mileage screen, we will click on the date and enter the date of travel. The business purpose is going to carry forward, and standard mileage is set as the default. If you're using a courtesy car or have approval to take a personal aircraft, you can update that rate here. The rate amount is set by the IRS, and so this rate updates based on the date that you enter as your travel date. So if there's a change in the rate, it will be reflected based on the dates that you input into the expense report. Then we're going to click on this new feature, Calculate Mileage. You will enter your starting destination and ending destination. And Chrome River uses Google Maps to calculate the mileage. If you took a different route or if there was a detour, you can change the route in the map. This will then change the mileage. You can also add additional destinations if traveled to another location for business, or if you're returning to your starting destination, click the Return to Start button. Then we'll click Save Trip. The miles and the spent amount will automatically update. Then we're going to select our focal string for your unit and click Save. The image of the Google map automatically attaches to your expense report. So we've now entered our expense report for mileage. As you can see on the left, everything is good to go as there is a green check mark. We'll then click the Submit button. And then we'll click Submit again on the right-hand side. Now, we're going to show you how to submit a receipt. So to do that, we're going to go back to the main dashboard by clicking on the Chrome River logo. So there are several ways to attach a receipt. You can upload a receipt directly to an expense type, or you can add a receipt to your receipt gallery. To upload a receipt directly to the expense type, you first take a photo or scan your receipt and save it to your computer. Then locate an expense. So for this example, we've created an employee reimbursement expense for supplies. At the bottom of the expense, there is an Add Attachments button. Click Add Attachments and select Upload Attachments. Locate the receipt and double-click it. A preview of the receipt will be shown on the screen. You can also add a receipt from your receipt gallery instead of uploading it from your hard drive. So let me demonstrate that by clicking on Add Attachments and selecting From Receipt Gallery. Then click the receipt that you want to add to this expense. Maybe it's going to go. Sorry, it seems to be being a little cranky today. There we go. We're going to click the checkbox and then click Attach. So to get receipts into your gallery, there are several different ways. First, you can use your smartphone in the Chrome River app called CR Snap. The information about this app is on the dashboard. Once you've downloaded this app to your cell phone and logged in, you'll be able to take photos of your receipts and they will automatically be saved in your receipt gallery. You could also email your receipts to receipt@ca1.chromeriver.com. The Chrome River application receives your email. Chrome River matches your email address to your Chrome River profile, and then it places these receipts directly into your gallery. If you have a T-card or P-card transaction in your e-wallet and it matches a receipt for the same amount, Chrome River will merge the image and the charge together. This merged item can then be attached to an expense report in one step. So now we're going to demonstrate how to submit a P-card expense. So a new feature of Chrome River is incorporating P-card expenses into the same system as T-card and employee reimbursements. The functionality is also very similar to T-card and submitting employee reimbursements, which was not the case for our current P-card system. So let me demonstrate how to complete an expense report for a P-card transaction. To begin, we'll click on the Create New in the Expenses ribbon. We enter the report name and business purpose, and we'll select P-card as the report type. The fiscal year will default to the current year, and then click Save. You'll then scroll through your e-wallet to find the P-card transaction you want to attach. Select it by clicking the checkbox and clicking the Add button. Then we will click on the P-card expenses and complete the details of the transaction, like start and end date if applicable. And these fields tie back to Anne and Amanda's presentation from earlier. There will be certain account codes that will not let you proceed without entering in these dates. The amount spent will be captured by the card transaction, but then we have to select the account number. And one nice feature is that if you don't know the exact account information, you can begin typing in parts of the account and different results will be presented to you. So find the correct account that you're looking for and select that. So this is a nice new feature that TEM did not have. Once you locate your account, it will bring up some of the more frequently used allocations at the bottom. So you can find the correct CFOP and select it. And at this time, if your receipt expense is not merged, you can add your receipt and then we'll click Save. So please note that the pay me amount for a card transaction should be 0. Then your expense report is ready to submit. So that's all for P-card. We're going to flip back over and show you some screenshots of the Chrome River application on your smartphone. So the mobile application is the entire Chrome River system on your phone. The main difference is that instead of the dashboard having a left and a right side, the mobile application only shows one side at a time. And you can toggle between the views between dashboard and company information at the top. You will see this first screenshot is of my phone and the Chrome River logo is at the top. You can still see your e-wallet, expenses, and any pre-approvals that you have. And you can click a Create New Expense Report with the Create New button in the ribbons. So here we've placed 2 screenshots side by side. Clicking the new expense report takes you to the screen on the right. As you will notice, the screens look just like the desktop version. You'll have to type in a report name, business purpose, and select the report type by selecting one of the radio button options. So here are two additional screenshots where we're adding a new expense on the left. And on the right, I have added airfare, and I can submit the expense report by clicking the button at the bottom of the screen. So now that we've covered some of the mobile functionality, there's one more thing that we wanted to share about Chrome River, and that's what will happen with proxies. So in TEM, we had proxies. In our new Chrome River application, proxies will be called delegates. If you have a delegate that enters your expense report information for you, in addition to the name change, you will now receive an email that your expense report is ready to be viewed and submitted. That is a nice new feature that TEM did not have. So that concludes our demo for today. Let's quickly revisit the timeline. As a reminder, we'll have the testing training kicking off this week, and then the go live test session will begin October 4th. Then we'll turn around and quickly have go live training ahead of the go live date for T-Card and employee reimbursements on November 15th. And then finally, P-Card goes live on December 6th. So that concludes our demo for today. Thank you for having us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat. Or did we answer all of the questions already, maybe?
Yeah, I think Rachel has actually
Good, a
answered
couple
most of the
more
questions.
popping in.
Do we want to go over them so that if people weren't able to keep up, we can just do kind of a recap?
Sure, I can read the ones that are coming in and Melissa can answer.
Perfect.
Will there be a
Thank you.
period where CS, I'm assuming they mean Chrome River, CR, and TEM P-Card can both be used?
Yes, so on November 15th, Chrome River will go live, but we are aware that the feeds with card transactions and things that were already started in TEM will need to be completed in TEM. So there will be a time where we are phasing out the transactions that are in TEM and we're moving people into Chrome River. So currently the card transaction feeds from the bank, it takes about 3 days for them to come in and hit your e-wallet. So that will still be the case in Chrome River.
And this is Jim. I have to add a warning that we will not leave TEM open for an extraordinary amount of time. We will be hounding cardholders and their proxies to get transactions reconciled quickly. So be prepared for that. We just can't afford to keep the P-Card system open for any longer than we have to.
So a question, can current P-Card and T-Card proxies still complete expense reports on behalf of holders on Chrome River? Yes, you will be a delegate as long as that individual, the cardholder, sets you up as their delegate. You will be able to create and submit that expense report, but the first stop in that line of approval will be the cardholder and whoever you're acting as a delegate for. So they will receive an email notification letting them know that you have submitted a report as their delegate, but they still have to go in and approve that to move it on to the next approval step.
I've answered a couple of the questions. The next one would be, will data from the Chrome River system be available in a web intelligence universe?
And yes, we're working with the folks to put it into the EDW. We don't know that that will all happen as of November 15th because we're still working with that.
And I'm not sure if this question was asked, but it did come up in our training session yesterday. Those of you that have USC responsibility, we will be working closely with AITS to migrate those routing and approval steps over to Chrome River. So please don't rush out and submit a bunch of requests to set up approvers. We're going to try to take care of that work for you. But the delegate setup will not be ported over because we've learned there's a lot of non-active situations that are happening and people cannot get off of that proxy list in TEM. So we'll have to set those up fresh and new in the Chrome River system.
There are a couple of questions about being able to view previously submitted expenses in TEM and historical information for P cards.
We anticipate having TEM open and P card web solutions open for research purposes, but not for processing, handling any new transactions. And we are not migrating data. So we are not going to take old P card transactions from last year and, for example, and stuff it into Chrome River, stuff them into Chrome River. So we will leave the systems open for research.
How will reconcilers and approvers be assigned?
So there will be more information coming out on that, and some of the names that you're used to hearing with P card, we're going to try to blend them better with T card and some of the language that people are used to in TEM. So instead of reconciler, it may be in a charge code reviewer or budget reviewer sort of situation, but we will have more information coming out about that.
All right, I think that's all we've got for right now, unless somebody's got a new one that they're typing.
Well, and I want to thank you. The service desk tickets, we are going to monitor those closely and compile the questions that we receive to produce a FAQ document. So feel free, if you have a question, to reach out through the service desk so we can track some of those questions and provide an answer that can benefit everyone in the university community.
Thank you, everyone. I think this was a great demonstration, and I'm eager to be able to use the new product, even if I only get to do it once before I retire. Next, we go on to Shauna Claiborne. I wanted to mention that the members of the Board of Trustees and university senior leaders certainly continue to be committed to improving procurement diversity at the university. So Shauna is with us today to share information about recent legislative activity and new contracts that allow you to work with diverse vendors in already established agreements with the university.
Awesome. Thank you, Gloria. All right, so yes, I am Shauna Claiborne. Good to be here today. We are the Office of Procurement Diversity, OPD for short. And as many of you already know, OPD is a system-wide department that oversees the university's supply diversity program. And our mission is to ensure that small businesses owned by minorities, women, persons with disabilities, and veterans are included in the procurement process. And we do this numerous ways. Some of the ways is by providing the necessary resources, outreach activities, procurement system support, and engagement with organizations and groups such as yourselves here today. So a few new things. there are a few laws, as Gloria mentioned, that were recently passed. I do want to highlight. So first, a few amendments to the existing Business Enterprise for Minorities, Women, and Persons with Disabilities Act, the BEP Act, and the Illinois Procurement Code. The amendments increase the BEP goal from 20% to 30%, excluding construction contracts. However, UIC and UIS have decided to increase its construction goals to 30%. So now all three universities will have the same goals. The Public Act also requires diversity training for CPOs and all purchasing personnel with substantial procurement and contracting responsibilities. And it requires emergency procurements to include good faith efforts, to include BEP firms. Effective January 1, Public Act 1020029 has restored good faith efforts and the 10-day cure period for all deficient bids and proposals, whether professional service or construction related. And certification recognition. So becoming certified as a BEP vendor hopefully is a little easier now that BEP, the program is recognizing and accepting certifications of businesses that have been certified with the city of Chicago and Cook County, for example. So for the university, that's also a win for us because now that increases, hopefully it will increase our diverse vendor pool that we can select vendors to do business with. So just a reminder on changes to renewals. No vendor shall be eligible for a renewal of a contract when that vendor has failed to meet the goals agreed to in the utilization plan, unless one, the university has determined that the vendor made a good faith effort towards meeting the goal and has issued a waiver, or the vendor is otherwise excused from compliance by the Chief Procurement Officer in consultation with the university. A couple of awards to highlight. The IPEC 2140 is a sheltered market. It's the IT consulting contract that replaced KRS 102. Just wanted to highlight that there are 54 100% BEP certified prime vendors on this award. It's here for the long run. The initial contract is for 5 years with a 1 5-year renewal. There are 15 categories the firms could be awarded in. And one caveat for this award is that a quote must be submitted to all 54 vendors. The university is working on a process to streamline that quote process. If you do want to use the vendors now, you can view the vendors and their pricing on the website and work with your purchasing department to solicit quotes. Also have advertising solutions, IPEC 2142, another sheltered market. And there are 3 100% BEP certified vendors on this award with a similar contract period. And it's good for those departments that may want to use a vendor for television, radio, event marketing, and print services. And a couple other reminders, just as always, please seek diverse vendors for purchases greater than or equal to $10,000 and under the small purchase limit by soliciting at least one quote from a BEP certified vendor or state use sheltered workshop. And please use the resources that we have so you can see what contracts are out there, the Illinois Procurement Bulletin and the IPEC website. And as always, we will be, not as always, I say that all the time, attend vendor presentations, please. We will be hosting some meet and greets coming up. I believe the first one will be October 5th. So we'll have a couple of professional service firms to present their capabilities and engage with the universities. And this is my contact information. If you ever have questions or need assistance with finding a diverse vendor, please feel free to reach out and be looking for an invite to the upcoming meet and greets. Hope that you guys can come. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks, Shauna.
Mhm.
And I want to thank everybody for joining today. I hope you've had a good start of term and that it continues to go well for you as we transition back to a more in-person environment. However, we will be with you again virtually at our next meeting, which is coming up on November 3rd. So have a good afternoon and thanks for joining.